1970s, thespian Richard O'Brien wrote a stage show that would pay homage to his love of universal horror and sci-fi. Loosely based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the show would also feature O'Brien's love of rock and roll and schlock cinema. What began as a small production would go on to create a word-of-mouth phenomena that would evolve the show to cult status. The show would gain the attention of 20th Century Fox, who would produce a movie that to this day continues to entertain an international following. So how did this all happen? We'll sit back and relax and discover everything you ever wanted to know about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. In the winter of 1972, out-of-work thespian Richard O'Brien began working on the theatrical play that would pay homage to his love of horror and sci-fi B-movies. What he originally intended was nothing more than a hobby. He pitched the project to Australian director and former collaborator Jim Sharman as a potential stage show. Intrigued by the bizarreness of the script, upon hearing the song Science Fiction Double Feature, Sharman was hooked and allowed O'Brien a £2,000 budget and a 5-week showing of the play to be performed at the rehearsal space of the Royal Court Theatre in London. O'Brien and Sharman would cast the show mostly from associates. For Magenta, Sharman had originally hoped for Marianne Faithfull but was unavailable for the part. Patricia Quinn was ultimately cast. She was won over by the song Science Fiction Double Feature and had been in several mutual productions with O'Brien. Little Nell Campbell was a tap-dancing street performer who had collaborated with Jim Sharman on several Australian productions. To play Brad and Janet, Sharman cast former colleagues Christopher Malcolm and Julie Covington respectively, who would see the show through its initial run. Tim Curry was cast by chance. Intending the lead Frankenfurter to be a muscular character, O'Brien was scouting gymnasiums for athletes who could sing. As a former collaborator in Hair, Curry approached O'Brien for the part. Jim Sharman had intended Jonathan Kramer for the role, but was blown away by Curry's audition and was cast immediately. Sharman would also employ several crew members he had previously worked with: set designer Brian Thompson, costume designer Sue Blaine, and makeup artist Pierre LaRoche, who had received praise for his work in '72 with David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust era. Working alongside Tim Curry, LaRoche loosely based the look of Frankenfurter on the evil queen from Snow White and Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. To develop the character, Curry was given creative freedom. Originally performing with a German accent, Curry would find inspiration on public transport. Overhearing a conversation between two elderly women, he was amused by their over-accentuation of the Queen's English. It was this speech pattern that Curry would apply to Frank. Opening June 19, 1973, showing to a full house of 63 patrons, the show caught the attention of many and was transferred to the Chelsea Classic Cinema to accommodate a greater audience. As word and fascination grew, the production moved again to its West End home at King's Road Theatre, London. The show would win the Evening Standard Award for Best Musical and was attended by Lou Adler, owner of Ode Records. He saw the potential of the show and purchased the US theatrical rights. Premiering at the Roxy Theatre, Los Angeles in the March of '74, several recasts had to be made. Most notably was the unknown vocalist Meatloaf. Cast in a dual role as Eddie and Dr. Scott, Meatloaf was uncomfortable with the homosexual suggestions of the play. Incredibly reluctant to wear fishnet stockings, upon seeing the audience reaction of the first performance, he was overwhelmed and saw the true comedy of the show. Meatloaf would also break the character's rules by performing leg dances to the audience, a trait that Jonathan Adams would apply later to the picture. The show became a huge success and would become a Broadway show in New York City. Through Lou Adler, O'Brien and Sharman were introduced to Gordon Stuhlberg at 20th Century Fox. Having attended a performance, Stuhlberg showed interest in producing a movie adaptation and offered a considerable budget with the provision of casting known actors. Elvis Presley had shown interest in playing Eddie, and Vincent Price was considered for the criminologist. Sharman and O'Brien refused the offer, believing the movie to be performed by the theatrical actors. Fox agreed on the provision of a heavily reduced budget and having American actors in the movie. To meet the proposal, Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon were cast to play Brad and Janet respectively. The picture would switch roles for many of the original cast. The narrator, Jonathan Adams, would play Dr. Scott, originally performed by Meatloaf from the US cast, and Riff Raff would be played by O'Brien himself, under recommendation from Jim Sharman, believing as the creator he should appear in the picture. Changing the name from the Rocky Horror Show to the Rocky Horror Picture Show to signify the transition from stage to screen, Fox gave the movie a $1.4 million budget with a release date set for August 1975. Demented Pictures is assisted by Patreon support. If you'd like to help the show develop, please keep viewing after the credits for contact details. If you're unable to contribute, please consider liking and sharing this video to help the channel grow. Prior to filming, as a requisite of making a musical picture, the soundtrack was recorded in advance. Assembling multiple musicians, Barry Wilson and Mick Grabham of 60s psychedelic rock band Procol Harum would contribute. Recorded over 2 weeks at the Studio 2 of London's Limbic Studios, the songs would be sung by the respective cast members, all with the exception of Peter Hinwood. As a non-vocalist, he was dubbed by Australian vocalist Trevor White. Jim Sharma would also insist that Richard O'Brien sing the intro song Science Fiction Double Feature. The song was performed in the show by Patricia Quinn. As O'Brien was the show's creator, Sharman thought it'd be more fitting for him to have the number. Noticing the original script of the stage show was running short, O'Brien wrote a song specifically with the intention of prolonging the performance. The Time Warp was a late addition that would later be expanded upon further to accommodate Neil Campbell's tap dancing skills. There were several songs that never made the final cut of the movie. Although appearing in the stage show and the soundtrack, the songs were removed for pacing issues. Sharman also issued a parody of the 20th Century Fox jingle. This would be the first time that Fox had allowed their intro to be altered for a picture. Filmed at Bray Studios in October of 1974, the movie would feature a few other locations. The church was a facade. Filmed near Hammer Studios would feature subtle appearances by the main cast. There would also be references to Grant Wood's painting and American Gothic. This would later again be referenced by Riff Raff's laser. Sharma would make several references to other famous paintings. Most humorously would be Whistler's Mother, which on close inspection is actually a mock photo of Meatloaf in a period evening dress. Sharma was humored by the concept of adding hidden gags within the sets. Inspired by the tradition of the Easter egg hunt, Sharman placed Easter eggs into every set. This was done as means of gameplay for the viewer to go on a virtual Easter egg hunt. Due to reshoots, many of the eggs have been removed from the set. Of the several takes that remain in the final cut, there are still eggs to be found. Although unconfirmed, it's highly possible that Jim Sharman unknowingly created this trade in media. To serve as Frankenfurter's mansion, Oakley Court in Windsor was used. The building was owned by a French ambassador who allowed the building to be used by production companies. Appearing in many Hammer productions, the house had major structural issues as the lead had been stripped from the roof. In Riff Raff's first shot, O'Brien is actually stood on the exposed floor beams as water damage had rotted away the original floorboards. Inspired by the style of Frank Eisenstein's Ivan the Terrible and the sexual exploitation of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Sharma would also bring many of the stage crew into production. Costume designer Sue Blaine, who had previously worked with Curry in The Maids, a show in which she designed a male corset for Curry, she would add a leather jacket that was adorned with chains and pin badges. This style she would also apply to Eddie, which is believed to have inspired producer Malcolm McLaren, a stylist and manager to the Sex Pistols. It's commonly believed that Blaine's designs contributed to the styles of the punk era. When filming The Time Warp, Sharman cast several stage extras to serve as the Transylvanians. Most notably were O'Brien's then wife, Kimmy Wong, and renowned British thespian, Christopher Biggins. The iconic dance that would accompany the song was inspired by Jean-Luc Godard's crime caper, Bon Départ, a movie that would also inspire the classic dance scene from Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Of the two main sets to be built were the Pool Theatre and Frankfurter's Laboratory. Built on the same soundstage, the location of the elevator was directly over the pool. Built by Brian Thompson, the sets would reuse many props from previous Hammer movies. Most notably would be Rocky's birthing tank, which had been previously used in The Revenge of Frankenstein in 1958. Interestingly, the scene of Rocky's birth was filmed on Halloween of 1974. Also worth noting is the grandfather clock, which unbeknown to the crew contained a real human skeleton. Selling for £35,000 in 2002, the clock was a commissioned build that contained the bones of her late husband. To cast Rocky, fashion model Peter Hinwood was hired. As he would be playing a character that was a scientific creation, Hinwood had to wear a belly button plug to show he wasn't naturally born. Rocky was based on former strongman Charles Atlas, who would advertise his gymnasium with taglines, "Don't dream it, be it," and "I'm gonna make you a man." Rocky would also wear similar pants to Atlas, which interestingly, Hinwood would later sell to the Hard Rock Cafe for £1,000. During Eddie's scene, as Meatloaf was unable to perform and ride the motorcycle simultaneously, stunt double Ken Shepard was used. In a freak accident when riding down the door of Eddie's chamber, the bike gave way at the foot of the ramp, falling on and breaking Shepard's leg in several places. To finish the scene, Meatloaf would sit in a wheelchair adorned with handlebars and a windshield for close-up shots. The bike would receive further damage as it fell from the balcony when preparing for a hero shot of Eddie. Thompson would also unwittingly create a flaw in the set. In the stage show, when Furter uses a magnet to summon Dr. Scott, the character would enter from the stage side. As this was a movie, Thompson forgot to include a door to the set. Pressed for time, it was decided to make Scott break through the scenery. The dinner scene was done to show that the family have no idea how to entertain guests, and foreshadow the reveal that they were actually aliens. Many of the cutlery items were actually medical equipment, like kidney bowls, sample jars, and even bedpans. Contrary to the stage show, it was also kept secret from the cast that Eddie's body would be in the table. This was done to get genuine reactions from the cast. This scene would also feature a song exclusive to the movie as means of giving fans from the stage show something new. For the third act of the movie, Sharman had intended Janet to appear nude, to which Susan Sarandon declined. Unaccustomed to British climate, Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon contracted the influenza virus early in production. Things became much worse for Sarandon. The studio was equipped with a single room for heating. Performing in lingerie in an unheated pool, she developed pneumonia. The scene would also be peppered with many other movie references. The RKO signboard was originally intended to be a 20th Century Fox logo. Though unconfirmed, it's believed that Fox weren't willing to have their logo so prominent in such a risque movie. To create the castle launch effect, a cardboard cutout was made and lifted out of the shot. This was shot in front of the real location, and hidden within the spoke on close inspection, Oakley Court can actually be seen in the background. The movie wrapped in December '74. On the final day of filming, Jim Sharma would include Patricia Quinn to the opening number. Inspired by the Man Ray painting The Lovers, Quinn would have her face blacked and wear stark red lipstick. As the song was recorded by O'Brien, he thought it would add to the androgynous nature of the picture. It was the Man Ray painting that would also inspire the Rolling Stones' iconic logo. Interestingly, it would not be Quinn's lips that would appear on the promotional artwork, but those of model Lorelei Shark. Working for a mere $120, Shark's lips would become some of the most recognized in cinema history. After 8 months of editing, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was released to the public. August 31st, 1975, the cinematic release saw very little attention. Being offended by certain sexual themes, the movie saw mass walkouts and was ultimately shelved by Fox. At the first viewing for Meatloaf and Jim Sharman, they found themselves the only attendees to the event. The movie was a failure. As the movie was funded for so little, Fox were unwilling to pay for release or further promote the movie. A year after the theatrical run, copies of the movie were smuggled to small art houses and campuses across America. Shown mostly to a demographic audience that the stage show had proved popular with, it was considered a faithful adaptation from stage to screen. The movie would unite lovers of the bizarre and camp. As an overly sexually liberated movie for a conservative age, the picture allowed many people of a closeted nature to express themselves. During this time, the cast had returned to England. Tim Curry embarked on a semi-successful music career. As a classically trained singer, Curry would release 3 studio albums with several small hit singles. Released in 1978, the music video I Do the Rock was shipped to nightclubs to help further spread the name of the movie. As word of the picture grew, a surge of popularity followed, praising the freely expressive themes of the picture. O'Brien was taken aback when he learned of the sexual impact that the movie had on both women and men. Following the sleeper status of the movie, Fox finally saw the true potential and re-released the movie to picture houses across America in 1977. The Rocky Horror Picture Show became a word-of-mouth phenomenon. As the show shipped worldwide, there would be similar responses in each respective country. Most notably Australia, the United Kingdom, and Germany, where the movie has been shown at the Museum Lichtspiele consistently since 1977, has become the longest theatrical run in cinema history. Among multiple achievement awards, the Rocky Horror Picture Show alone has grossed over $140 million. The picture show would receive an indirect sequel. Written by Sharman and O'Brien, released in 1981, Shock Treatment would continue the story of Brett and Janet. Now married, they found their hometown has become a TV station and find themselves trapped as contestants on a game show. Featuring upcoming comedians Barry Humphries and Rick Mayall, the movie had O'Brien's signature rock and roll and iconic bizarreness, but sadly failed to find an audience. The Rocky Horror Show would also receive 2 video games. Released in 1985 for the Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, and ZX Spectrum, you take control of Brad or Janet on a side-scrolling collectathon, avoiding partygoers from stealing your clothes. The game received average reviews and faded into obscurity. Released in 2000 for PC CD-ROM, the Rocky Interactive Horror Show was a point-and-click adventure. Hosted by Richard O'Brien and Christopher Lee, the game hosted many bonus features, but ultimately received poor reviews. In 2016, Fox would attempt to revitalize the movie with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Let's Do the Time Warp Again. Starring Laverne Cox and an ensemble of young performers, the remake was mostly seen as a money grab and criticized for its poor casting and execution. Featuring a cameo from Tim Curry, who sadly suffered a major stroke in 2012, Let's Do the Time Warp Again was panned by fans and critics alike. There were several songs on the soundtrack to receive remakes. Most notably were The Time Warp by Damien in 1989, and Sweet Transvestite by Anthony Stewart Head, who had played Frank in the 1991 run of Rocky Horror. Since the release of the movie, the Rocky Horror Show slowly spread its way across the globe. Over time, theaters encouraged audience interaction, starting in Waverly Theatre on April Fool's Day 1976, to enhance certain eccentricities of the show. Varying between theaters, crowd participation and cosplay has become a staple of the Rocky Horror experience. Converted into 11 languages and still the midnight movie in over 100 cinemas in the US, the show is the longest running stage production in history and continues to entertain and gain new generations of fans in every continent. The Rocky Horror Show has proved itself and truly is the greatest cult movie of all time. Be sure to like and share the video, and please consider subscribing for more. To follow Demented Pictures on social media, check the description box below. Also, if you want to help the show develop, please consider supporting the show through Patreon. You'll get behind-the-scenes updates and an opportunity to choose the next movie covered in the show. This is Mike from Demented Pictures. Thank you for watching.